Welcome to this year's Order of the Engineer induction ceremony. Thank you to both classes of 2020 and 2021 for joining us today. My name is Dr. Sue Freeman, and I'm the Associate Dean for Undergraduate Education and Professor of First Year Engineering. I am also a proud member of the Order of the Engineer. It is my privilege to serve as Master of Ceremonies for today's event. Before we start, let's just have a few notes, probably things you already know from many classes, but please turn off your microphones until you're instructed to turn them on. Have your ring and certificate and a pen in front of you. Do not put your ring on or sign the certificate until you're instructed to do so. I now have the pleasure of introducing the Dean of the College of Engineering and Professor of Electrical and Computer Engineering, Dr. Gregory D. Abowd, an internationally renowned and highly cited scientist. Dr. Abowd is well known for his contributions in the general area of human-computer interaction and specifically for his groundbreaking research in ubiquitous computing. Join me in welcoming Dean Abowd, who will start today's induction ceremony.
Thank you, Dean Freeman. Students and alumni, it is a privilege to welcome you to this ceremony on behalf of the College of Engineering. Achieving a degree in engineering takes tremendous commitment, as you know. It also puts you in a very elite group worldwide, those with engineering knowledge to pioneer, innovate, and address the grand challenges of the 21st century. You stand as role models of the engineering profession and the endless possibilities that engineers contribute to advancing society and transforming the world. The Order of the Engineer is the symbol of your accomplishments and dedication to the field. It was first initiated in the US in order to foster a spirit of pride and responsibility in the engineering profession, to bridge the gap between training and experience, and to present to the public a visible symbol identifying the engineer. I want to take a moment to congratulate all the engineers of this ceremony for their tireless work. You will leave this ceremony with an official and commemorative sign that you are indeed an engineer held in the highest regard, as well as a representative of Northeastern University. Congratulations and best wishes in your future. I would now like to reintroduce Dean Freeman to give opening remarks.
Thank you, Dean Abowd. This afternoon celebrates a significant and historical event. The Order of the Engineer was first brought to Northeastern University by a junior electrical engineering student, Janine Modendorfer, in 1986, after hearing about it at a National Convention of Engineering Student Councils. She initiated and organized the first ring ceremony in the spring of 1987. Northeastern University College of Engineering was then officially established as Link 108 in the Order of the Engineer. This ceremony is to have you pledge to practice engineering in an ethical manner, an important part of our profession. We have a proud tradition in the great way that we conduct this ceremony and have some special guests who will contribute to this event. I will introduce them shortly, but I also want to recognize Gina O'Brien McClellan, whose dedication to make this great event is legendary. In fact, she won the Link Award as one of the top organizers of OOE ceremonies in the US. We also want to thank Martha Bogatti, who has also been assisting us greatly in this event and who many of you might have corresponded with. Both of them have done a great job in making sure that we hold this event this year. Our special guests during today's event will include Roch LaRochelle, past chair of the Board of Governors for the Order of the Engineer, who will speak about the symbolism and history of the Order of the Engineer. We will then have an Ethics in Engineering presentation by Richard Harris, Assistant Dean of Academic Scholarships, Mentoring, and Outreach. Prior to joining COE, Richard spent 15 plus years as an engineer in the industry. He's the Assistant Dean for Academic Scholarship, Mentoring, and Outreach, Director of New Prime, Northeastern University Program in Multicultural Engineering, and COE DEI Committee Co-Chair. Richard is an affiliate professor for the Africana Studies Department in the College of Social Sciences and Humanities and special advisor for Educational Pathways Program for the Office of the Provost. Last but not least, Richard Harris is a proud industrial engineering alumnus of COE. And then lastly, we will induct all attendees into the Order of the Engineer. You will have a chance to make sure you turn your mics on when prompted and cheer, if that's what you'd like to do. I now have the pleasure of introducing Roch LaRochelle. Roch LaRochelle is an associate and civil section manager for HDR's Northern New England transportation practice. His 30-plus year career was focused primarily on transportation projects, working for the state Department of Transportation's and governmental agency designing small to large highway and transportation infrastructure projects. Roch earned a bachelor and master's degree in civil engineering and is a licensed professional engineer and a fellow of the National Society of Professional Engineers. Roch has a long history of service to the profession, having served the NHSPE, the National Society of Professional Engineers, and the National Society of Professional Engineers. Founder of the New Hampshire Joint Engineering Societies, and very importantly, he is the national chair for the Order of the Engineer, which he has served since 2008. We want to welcome Roch LaRochelle.
That's assuming I can figure out how to turn my mic on. Thank you, Dean Freeman. And it's certainly a pleasure to be here. Can you all hear me okay? Thumbs up. All right, awesome.
We can.
Well, 30 plus years makes me sound really old, and I really don't feel that old. So hopefully I don't fall over during this event, but it's certainly a pleasure to be here today and to represent the Order, the National Board of Governors. Just one correction, I am now the immediate past chair. I served as the chair for 2 years, so now I get to relax a little bit as Steve Schreiner, who's over at Manhattan College, gets to take over the reins there. This is certainly a historic year as we're now celebrating 50 years for the Order of the Engineer. And, the efforts by the staff over at Northeastern have been tremendous for all these years. You always have a huge showing and tremendous support. And Gina and Martha, we really certainly appreciate all of the work and effort that you put into this every year. And I know in speaking to our executive director, Paula Ostaff, she always has wonderful things to say. And it's certainly a pleasure to be here with, all of you individuals today. So to that, this ceremony presents an opportunity for us to take a pledge and to recall that the professional purpose of engineering involves the pursuit of a learned art in the spirit of public service. By following the acceptance of the obligation, the individual engineer reinforces similar efforts of his or her peers, realizing that in unity there is strength. Decades ago, our engineering counterparts in Canada had the similar feeling. They believed that a need existed for the introduction of a spirit of brotherhood and cohesiveness among engineers. The Canadians believed that a good way to achieve this purpose would be to instill in engineers a consciousness of belonging to one another, to themselves as individuals, and to those whom they served. Thus was done in 1925 in Canada in what is now known as the ritual of the calling of an engineer. The words of the ritual were written by the English author Rudyard Kipling, who you may know, who had much depth of feeling for engineers as the builders of things intended to benefit mankind. The Canadian ceremony is very dignified, impressive, and includes the placing of a wrought iron ring on the small finger of the individual's working hand, and then having them repeat in concert the words of Kipling. It's difficult to visualize any better symbolism than that of a ring worn for all to see, and saying in effect that there is an engineer dedicated to a publicly avowed obligation to the profession and to those it has served. In Ohio, the idea of similar maxims to those written by Kipling were well established, and correspondence began in October in 1953 between the Canadian wardens responsible for the administration of the calling of an engineer and officers to the Ohio Society of Professional Engineers, with a view to possibly extend the Canadian ceremony to the United States. But however, due to copyright and other conflicting factors, extension of the ritual into this country was not possible. During 1966, a group of engineers in Ohio with members of several engineering organizations began to pursue the objective of what came to be called the Order of the Engineer, which we now serve. While the deliberations of the group were in progress, seniors of then College of Engineering of Cleveland State University, counseled by Dean Burl Bush, designed and held a ring ceremony and reception on June 4th, 1970. Each participant signed a creed and received a plain stainless steel ring, just like you have today, or that you will receive today, and placed it on the small finger of his or her working hand. And at that time, 170 engineering seniors and engineering faculty members took part in this first ceremony. Since then, the movement has spread rapidly throughout the states. I think to date, we have over 500,000 engineers who have taken the oath. Interestingly enough, this past year, we were supposed to be celebrating the 50th anniversary event at Cleveland State University, and due to COVID conditions, we had to put that off, which was really unfortunate because we couldn't have an in-person event. And hopefully we'll be rescheduling that in next spring, actually, in 2022, only 2 years too late, thanks to COVID. So such is the story of an increasing acceptance of the Order of the Engineer as it is known in the United States today. It is patterned on the Canadian concept, but with the stainless steel ring symbolizing strength and unity of the profession and providing an identifying mark of an engineer. The Order of the Engineer, to which you will soon belong, is an independent organization. Purpose is to foster a feeling of pride and in dedication to that profession which blends us together. You are asked to accept with pride the meaning of the ceremony to which you are about to subscribe. The obligation should be freely given and the responsibility gladly accepted throughout your career. The order is symbolized by the acceptance of the obligation, wearing the stainless steel ring on the little finger of your working hand. The obligation is the formal statement of an engineer's responsibilities to the public and the profession. It is a creed similar to the oath attributed to Hippocrates and is commonly taken by medical graduates, and which sets forth an ethical code. The obligation likewise contains parts of the canon of ethics of major engineering societies. Initiates, as they voluntarily accept it, pledge to uphold the standards and dignity of the engineering profession and to serve humanity by making the best use of Earth's precious and limited resources. The obligation itself is a composite of several creeds. It emphasizes the fact that we, as engineers, have certain obligations. It promotes honesty and integrity and recognizes that today's engineers are dependent on their predecessors for their skills. I would now like to invite Richard Harris, the Assistant Dean for Academic Scholarship, Mentoring and Outreach, to lead you through an ethics in engineering presentation. Richard?
Greetings. Great. Thanks, Rosh LaRochelle. Appreciate that. So allow me to begin in focusing on ethics. And I'd like to start with the Merriam-Webster dictionary and how it defines ethics in several ways, but there are two definitions that I would like to stress. The first definition is a set of principles of right conduct. The second definition are the rules or standards governing the conduct of a person or the members of a profession, such as medical ethics, and in our case, more accurately, engineering ethics. These engineering ethics are further delineated specifically within each engineering discipline, having its own set of ethics to which they are subscribed. Generally, the special standards that constitutes a profession's ethics are formulated into a code of ethics and into formal interpretations of that code. Therefore, engineering ethics is part of how the engineer needs to think. Once again, engineering ethics is part of thinking like an engineer. Because this point is often, or can be, I should say, easily overlooked, professional ethics belongs neither to common sense, so we can't depend on common sense, nor to philosophy, but to the profession in question. Indeed, insofar as engineering is a profession, knowing what the profession allows, forbids, or requires is as relevant and essential as knowing how to calculate stress, design a circuit, or determine the mean time between failure of a specific piece of equipment. Engineering ethics differs from ordinary morality in that it does differ by demanding more of the engineer or a higher standard. For example, honesty for an engineer includes a duty of candor that goes beyond this form of ordinary morality. To say that engineering ethics applies only to engineers is not to deny any similarity between engineering ethics and ordinary morality, but rather to deny that ordinary people are bound by whatever additional obligations engineers must take on, meaning this is our domain that we are held accountable for. Essentially, the phrase often used, "to whom much is given, much shall be required," speaks to the level directly of responsibility engineers are given, and therefore, as a corollary, therefore the accountability of which they shall be required to display in return. In fact, if I might digress here, and I think Mr. LaRochelle spoke about this, where we align this in some ways with the Hippocratic treatise of do no harm. And so in this case, that applies to the health professions or medical doctors, where one can impart harm one person at a time due to ethical lapses. However, as engineers, we can unfortunately impart harm to tens and hundreds at a time due to ethical lapses in our profession. Imagine, if you will, a similar magnitude of this type of deliberate and ethical lapses within the engineering professions. Not only would this affect corporations and other entities, but the lives of the public would also be at risk. Buildings and other structures would be falling down around us. Airplanes would be dropping out of the skies. Automobiles would create hazardous conditions on the roadways. Communication systems would be interrupted or intermittent, and the list goes on and on. But permit me to provide you with two case studies which predate, I think, the birth date for many of you. One that's probably known by my colleagues is the Big Dig. The Big Dig reflected a unique commitment on the part of a global, I guess, a process in designing and developing a way to connect the I-90 ramp and expanded the I-93 ramp. But let me get into what the case study says. The Big Dig ceiling collapse occurred on July 10th, 2006, when a concrete ceiling panel with debris weighing 26 tons and measuring 20 by 40 feet fell in Boston's D Street portal just west of the Ted Williams Tunnel, basically the tunnel that you come through and go to through the airport. The panel fell on a car traveling in the 2-lane ramp, and as a result, killed a passenger and injured the driver. Investigations showed, and the repair of the collapse eventually caused a full-year shutdown of that Big Dig area. Further investigation revealed that over 1,000 fasteners used to hold up similar tiles were likely defective. It was determined through lab tests that epoxy glue, yes, epoxy glue used to hold these fasteners in place and scheduled during the original construction were denied their testing in order to accelerate the completion of the project. Now it looks like the test would have been a good idea because they might have revealed the kind of problems that ultimately led to these fatal ceiling collapse. Speculation, however, confirmed by experts that the epoxy actually related to challenges regarding temperature, stress creep, and other environmental issues that ultimately resulted in this unique failure that impacted and cost the life of one individual, but put the lives of others at risk for hundreds of individuals. And so ultimately, whatever was done wrong, it appeared to be done consistently wrong, whereas 1,300 fasteners had to be removed and replaced. But this is not unique. This also happened in 1981 at the Hyatt Hotel in Kansas City, where again, there was a significant number of steel rods holding up a portion of the flooring. And unfortunately, 114 people were killed and 200 injured when it collapsed. And so again, there was a study, or I should say an investigation, and it determined that this investigation was a result of improper use or application of these steel rods going forward. Therefore, a similar but much more direct way as engineers, we hold the trust and safety of the public within our relative areas of responsibility. While there is no way to compare the engineering profession to the medical profession, the oath of do no harm is just as demanding. I would encourage each of you to prepare yourself by understanding the principles of right conduct as it relates to the engineering profession. because the time will come, not might come, but will come, when you will have to choose between doing what is expedient or doing what might be considered controversial within your respective companies or organizations by insisting on adhering to these ethical codes. And so in closing, allow me to leave you with this, and hopefully you appreciate why I'm using this phrase. And it comes from the book of Ecclesiastes. And it says, I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding, nor yet favor to men in skill, but time and chance happeneth to them all. The emphasis is on how time and chance happeneth to them all. And so all of you must prepare in our own individual times when we will have the chance to stand firm on the principles of right conduct within the engineering profession. Thank you, and I hope this embodies the ethical decisions that we as engineers are obligated to uphold. Thank you. I now give you back Professor Sue Freeman.
Thank you, Dean Harris. That was absolutely inspiring. I hope that all of that would be taken to heart. There's a lot that started in your first year where we talked about ethics, and hopefully has been brought through all of your years and through this to this completion. I will now share the significance of the ring itself, and then all students will be inducted into the order. The ring is a symbol of pride, prestige, honor, and professionalism. Among all engineering in the United States, it also serves as a reminder to the engineer of our obligation to society. The symbol of your desire to serve the public is the engineer's ring. The ring you will wear on the fifth finger of the working hand will say to all who see it, here is an engineer, possessed of a publicly avowed dedication to the profession and the public that they serve. It is our symbol. Wear it for all to see. It is a badge of recognition which will become known to all as the sign of a learned professional pledged to making the best use of Earth's resources and precious resources. Now, candidates, it is now time to be officially inducted into the Order of the Engineer. Please turn your cameras on. There is no need to unmute yourself. We are a large group, but please follow along when you are told to participate. Raise your right hand and recite with me, and it's on the screen, the obligation of an engineer that is shown on the screen now and also on the pocket card many of you have. As an engineer, I pledge to practice integrity and fair dealing, tolerance and respect, and to uphold devotion to the standards and the dignity of my profession, conscious always that my skill always carries with it the obligation to serve humanity by making the best use of Earth's precious wealth. As an engineer, I shall participate in none but honest enterprises. When needed, my skill and knowledge shall be given without reservation for the public good. In the performance of duty and in fidelity to my profession, I shall give my utmost. For those of you that have received your rings, you may now place that symbol of your dedication to your chosen profession on the small finger of your working hand for all to see and recognize. For those of you who have not yet received your ring, you may do the same when it is in your possession. Now, in the presence of your fellow engineers, virtual presence, but presence nonetheless, I ask each of you to sign the obligation certificate so that you may fully acknowledge the meaning and responsibility of the obligation and your promise to participate in none other than ethical practice of engineering and to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public that we serve. I welcome each of you to the privileges and obligations of the Order of the Engineer. The ring is a reminder of our calling. Your certificate is your creed. It bears your name and signature. It is your pact with your profession. Read it thoughtfully. Regard it with humility. Wear your ring proudly and with distinction, for you are an engineer. Congratulations to Northeastern University's College of Engineering Class of 2020 and Class of 2021 inductees. We will now show everyone's name in a slideshow presentation. You are welcome to unmute and give yourselves a round of applause. Yay! Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Yeah.
Woo!
Hello.
Woo-hoo.